Her patient was dying. But the moment Zendaya saw the face of the man funding her stay, she forgot how to breathe. Kevin Hart, the boy who disappeared without a goodbye. Now her employer, and the son of the woman whose heartbeat she's trying to keep alive. But when he says save her, Zendaya can't tell if he means his mother or himself. If you believe no one deserves to be abandoned after giving their heart, hit subscribe. Only cold-hearted people like Kevin wouldn't. Thank you for sticking around with me, my wonderful story family. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The call came at 11:47 p.m. Dr. Zendaya Mitchell was 3 hours into reviewing patient files when her private consultation line, reserved exclusively for critical cases, shattered the silence of her downtown Chicago office. The city sprawled below her, a glittering web of lights against the October darkness. She'd been an oncologist for 3 years now, but something about this particular evening felt different, heavy, as if the universe was holding its breath. She reached for the phone. Dr. Mitchell. Her voice was steady, professional, betraying nothing of the exhaustion that clung to her shoulders like a second skin. Dr. Mitchell, this is Patricia Caldwell, executive assistant to Kevin Hart. The voice on the other end was crisp, efficient, brooking no argument. Mr. Hart requires your immediate expertise for a private consultation. The patient is his mother, Catherine Hart. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She's requesting to remain at the family estate rather than a hospital. We need you there tonight. Zendaya's fingers tightened around the phone. Hart. The name sliced through her carefully constructed armor, sharp and sudden. A name she hadn't heard spoken aloud in 8 years. A name that still carried the weight of summer nights, stolen kisses and a goodbye that never came. Kevin Hart. It couldn't be the same Kevin Hart. The boy who'd worked at his father's struggling tech startup. The boy who'd held her hand during her senior year of high school. Who'd promised her forever under the stars at Navy Pier. Who'd vanished without a trace the week before college started. But deep in her gut, she knew. Have you ever had someone from your past show up when you least expected it? Comment yes if that memory still stings. And don't forget to like this video if the suspense has you hooked. She forced herself to breathe. Location? The Hart estate in Lake Forest. A car will arrive at your building in 15 minutes. Please bring everything you'll need for an extended stay. Mr. Hart has made it clear that his mother's comfort is the only priority, and he wants the best. A pause. That's you, Dr. Mitchell. The line went dead. Zendaya sat frozen, her reflection ghost-like in the window's dark glass. Her locks were pulled back in a neat bun, her white coat pristine, her stethoscope a familiar weight around her neck. Dr. Zendaya Mitchell is one of the youngest and most promising oncologists at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, a woman who'd built herself from scholarship student to specialist through sheer determination. But right now, all she felt was 17 again, standing on that pier, waiting for a boy who never showed up. She grabbed her medical bag. The Mercedes that arrived was sleek, black, and silent as a prayer. The driver, a stone-faced man in a dark suit, offered no small talk. The ride north felt eternal, every mile pulling her further from the life she'd built and closer to the past she'd buried. Lake Forest emerged from the darkness like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Massive estates, hidden behind iron gates and ancient oaks. Old money, new power. The kind of wealth that whispered rather than shouted. The Hart estate sat at the end of a private road, a sprawling modern masterpiece of glass and steel that seemed to float above the landscape. Security cameras tracked their approach. The gate opened soundlessly. Zendaya's heart hammered against her ribs. A woman in a sharp blazer met her at the entrance. "Dr. Mitchell, I'm Patricia. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Mrs. Hart's suite is on the second floor. She's been asking for someone who can help her stay comfortable, someone who'll tell her the truth." "That's what I do," Zendaya said quietly, gripping her medical bag tighter. The interior of the house was breathtaking, soaring ceilings, original artwork, furniture that probably cost more than her entire student loan debt. But beneath the beauty, there was something else. A heaviness. The particular silence that comes when death is waiting in the wings. Patricia led her down a hallway lined with family photographs. Zendaya's eyes caught on one image and her breath stopped. A young man, maybe 19, standing beside an older couple. His smile was wide, genuine, and full of hope. His eyes were the same bright blue she remembered, the same blue that had looked at her like she was his entire world. Kevin. "Mr. Hart will join you shortly," Patricia said, stopping before a set of double doors. "He's finishing a call with Tokyo. Mrs. Hart is awake and lucid. She's a remarkable woman." The doors opened. The suite was less a bedroom and more a palace, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, soft lighting, and in the center, a hospital bed that looked strangely out of place among the luxury. But it was the woman in the bed who commanded every bit of Zendaya's attention. Catherine Hart was small, fragile, her body ravaged by the disease eating away at her. But her eyes, sharp, knowing, kind, were fully alive. "Dr. Mitchell," Catherine said, her voice a whisper, but warm. "Thank you for coming. I know it's late." Zendaya moved to her bedside, her professional training taking over, pushing down the chaos in her chest. "Mrs. Hart, I'm here to help you be as comfortable as possible. Can you tell me about your pain levels?" "Call me Catherine, please." A faint smile. "And my pain is manageable for now, but I know what's coming. The other doctors talk around it. Use soft words." "I don't want soft words, Dr. Mitchell. I want honesty." Zendaya met her gaze. "Then, I'll give you honesty." She began her examination. Gentle, thorough, noting the telltale signs of advanced cachexia, the yellowing of the sclera indicating liver involvement, the shallow breathing that spoke of limited time. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking vitals, palpating for masses, assessing range of motion. Catherine watched her work. "You're very good at this. Gentle. But I can see there's something else. Something in your eyes. You look at this house like it's haunted." Zendaya's hands stilled. "I'm just focused on your care, Catherine." "Liar," Catherine said softly, but there was affection in it. "You remind me of someone my son used to talk about. A long time ago." Before Zendaya could respond, the air in the room changed. She felt him before she saw him. A presence that made her skin prickle, her heart rate spike, her carefully constructed walls tremble. She turned slowly, knowing, dreading, needing to see. Kevin Hart stood in the doorway. Imagine seeing your first love after nearly a decade, in a room where life and death hang in the balance. If you'd freeze like Zendaya did, hit that like button and tell us what you'd say first. 8 years had transformed him from a hopeful boy into something else entirely. He was taller, broader, his frame filling the expensive cut of his charcoal suit. His jaw was sharper, dusted with stubble. His blue eyes, those same devastating eyes, were harder now, colder, carrying the weight of whatever he'd endured to become the billionaire CEO the world knew. But it was still him, still the boy who'd kissed her breathless, still the boy who'd broken her heart. Their eyes locked. Time collapsed. 8 years evaporated. She was 17 again, standing on that pier, the Chicago wind whipping around her, checking her phone obsessively, waiting for him to show up, for an explanation, for anything. He never came. His expression remained carefully neutral, but she saw it, the slight widening of his eyes, the almost imperceptible catch in his breath. He recognized her. "Dr. Mitchell," he said, his voice deeper than she remembered, rougher, edged with something she couldn't name. "Thank you for coming." He didn't acknowledge their past, didn't offer even a flicker of recognition beyond that initial shock. He treated her like a stranger, like a hired professional, nothing more. The dismissal was a blade between her ribs. "Mr. Hart," she managed, her voice thankfully steady, "your mother is comfortable for now. I've reviewed her recent scans and blood work. I'd like to discuss her care plan with you privately." Catherine's gaze moved between them, sharp, knowing. "Kevin, don't hover. Dr. Mitchell is here to help. Let her do her job." Kevin's jaw tightened. "I want her to have everything she needs. Anything. Name it, and it's hers." "What she needs," Zendaya said quietly, meeting his gaze with steel in her own, "is dignity, honesty, and time. I can help with the first two. The third is beyond any of us." Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or pain. He nodded once, sharp. "I'll have Patricia set you up in the guest wing. You'll have full access to the house, the staff, whatever medical equipment you require." His voice dropped slightly. "Please, save her." The plea, so at odds with his controlled demeanor, cracked something in Zendaya's chest. "I'll do everything I can," she promised. Kevin turned to leave but paused at the door. His back was to her, his shoulders tense. "Dr. Mitchell." He didn't turn around. "I'm glad it's you." Then he was gone. Zendaya's knees nearly buckled. Catherine reached out, her thin fingers wrapping around Zendaya's wrist. "So," she said, a knowing smile on her lips despite her exhaustion, "you're the one, the girl from the photographs he burned but couldn't forget." The guest suite they assigned her was obscene in its luxury, a California king bed with sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent, a private bathroom with a soaking tub, and a sitting area overlooking the estate's illuminated gardens. But Zendaya barely noticed. She stood at the window, her reflection staring back at her, her mind a hurricane. Kevin Hart. The last time she'd seen him, he'd been Kevin Hartley, the son of a struggling tech entrepreneur who worked 2 jobs to keep his startup afloat. They'd met during her senior year at Lincoln Park High, his first year at Northwestern. He'd volunteered at the community center, where she tutored kids in science. Their connection had been instant, electric, terrifying in its intensity. He'd been her first everything, first real kiss under the flickering lights of the L train, the first person who made her believe she was worth loving, first heartbreak when he vanished without explanation, leaving only a cryptic text. "I'm sorry. Please don't try to find me. You deserve better." She'd tried anyway, called, texted, showed up at his apartment. His father's company had imploded overnight. Fraud allegations, bankruptcy, scandal. The Hartley family disappeared into the wreckage. Zendaya had spent months unraveling, then years rebuilding. Medical school became her sanctuary. Saving lives became her purpose. And now here he was, not broken, not destroyed, but transformed into Kevin Hart, billionaire CEO of Hart Technologies, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the world. The man who'd apparently risen from his father's ashes and built an empire. The man who'd looked at her like she was a stranger. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. "Dr. Mitchell," Patricia's voice. "Mr. Hart would like to speak with you in his study, if you're available." Zendaya's stomach tightened. "I'll be right there." The study was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a massive desk that faced windows overlooking the lake. Kevin stood with his back to her, one hand braced against the window frame, his silhouette stark against the moonlight. "Close the door," he said quietly. She did. The silence stretched, painful, heavy with 8 years of unasked questions. Finally, he turned. Up close, without his mother's fragile presence between them, the full force of him hit her, the sharp planes of his face. There is barely leashed tension in his frame, the way his eyes, God, those eyes, fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Zendaya." Her name on his lips was rough, almost reverent. "Jesus Christ, Zendaya." "Don't," she said sharply, her voice cracking despite her best efforts. "Don't say my name like we're old friends catching up. You ghosted me, you destroyed me. And now I'm supposed to what, pretend that didn't happen? Treat your mother while you stand there acting like we're strangers?" His jaw clenched. "I had no choice. Everyone has a choice. Not when the alternative is your death." The words exploded from him, raw, unfiltered. He ran a hand through his hair, the careful control fracturing. "You want the truth? Fine. When my father's company collapsed, it wasn't just business. He'd gotten involved with people, dangerous people, to keep things afloat. When it all fell apart, those people came looking for payment. In blood. Zendaya's pulse hammered. Kevin. They threatened everyone close to us, he continued, his voice dropping to something dark, haunted. My mother, my sister, you. They had photos of you, Zendaya. Photos of us. They knew where you lived, where you studied, and your daily routine. They told me if I didn't disappear, if I didn't sever every connection, they'd make examples, starting with the people I loved most. The room tilted. I was 19, Kevin said, and for a moment she saw the boy beneath the billionaire. Terrified, my father was dead. Suicide, they called it, but we both know better. I had two choices, vanish and let you live, or stay and watch them destroy you. So I left, changed my name legally, took my mother and sister into hiding, spent 3 years looking over my shoulder, building something from nothing, until I had enough money and power that those people couldn't touch us anymore. Tears burned Zendaya's eyes. You could have told me. And put you in more danger? He shook his head. No. You were supposed to forget me. Move on. Build the life you deserve. I loved you, she whispered, the words torn from somewhere deep and wounded. I loved you, and you left me with nothing. No explanation, no closure, just gone. Kevin's control was shattered. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands cupping her face with a desperation that stole her breath. I never stopped. Do you understand? 8 years, Zendaya. 8 years of checking on you from a distance, making sure you got into med school, making sure your scholarships came through, watching you become everything I knew you would be, loving you from the shadows because it was the only way to keep you safe. Her hands came up to grip his wrists. You've been watching me. Making sure you were okay, he corrected, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. Never interfering, never close enough to risk bringing my world crashing into yours. Until now. Until my mother. His voice broke. Until my mother is dying, and the only person I trust with her care is you. The vulnerability in his eyes demolished her. Kevin, she breathed, then kissed him. It was desperate, furious, 8 years of grief and longing compressed into a single moment. His arms banded around her, pulling her against him like she might disappear. She tasted salt, couldn't tell if it was her tears or his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. I don't have the right to ask anything of you, he said hoarsely, but please, save my mother. She's all I have left. And then if you want me to disappear again, I will. Zendaya pulled back, her hand still fisted in his shirt. I'm not 17 anymore, Kevin. I don't break that easily. But if we're doing this, if I'm staying here, treating your mother, we do it honestly. No more secrets. No more protecting me by pushing me away. His eyes searched hers. You could still walk away. I could, she agreed, but I won't, because that woman in there deserves the best care I can give. And because, she swallowed hard, because I need to know if what we had was real or just a memory I've been holding on to for too long. Kevin's hand slid to the back of her neck, his touch sending shivers down her spine. It was real, Zendaya. It's still real, at least for me. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from the night nurse. Mrs. Hart's oxygen levels are dropping. Please come quickly. Over the next 2 weeks, Zendaya established a routine within the gilded cage of the Hart estate. Her days revolved around Catherine, monitoring pain levels, adjusting medication, stealing whatever moments of peace she could for the dying woman. Catherine was remarkable, sharp-witted, gracious, brutally honest about her impending death in a way that was both heartbreaking and inspiring. I've made my peace, Catherine told her one afternoon, sunlight streaming through the windows, casting her in an almost ethereal glow. I got to see my son become extraordinary. I got to watch him rise from ashes that should have buried him. And now, she reached for Zendaya's hand, now I get to see him look at someone The way he looks at you. That's enough." Zendaya blinked back tears. "Catherine." "He's been alone too long," Catherine continued, her grip surprisingly strong. "Buried himself in work, in building his empire, in keeping everyone at arm's length, until you walked through that door. Don't let him push you away, Dr. Mitchell. He'll try. He's convinced he's protecting you. But what he really needs is someone strong enough to stay." The words haunted Zendaya as she moved through the house. Kevin was everywhere and nowhere. She'd catch glimpses of him in the early morning, running along the estate's paths, his breath fogging in the October chill. She'd hear his voice in the study late at night, taking calls with Tokyo, London, and Singapore. Their interactions were brief, professional, charged with an electricity that made her skin prickle, until one evening, 3 weeks into her stay. She was reviewing Catherine's latest blood work in the medical suite Kevin had outfitted for her, state-of-the-art equipment, anything she could possibly need, when something caught her eye. A subtle anomaly in the lab results. Catherine's symptoms had been progressing steadily, predictably, but these new results showed trace elements that didn't fit. Her liver enzymes were spiking in ways that didn't align with pancreatic cancer progression. Her neurological responses were showing microtremors that weren't consistent with standard end-stage disease. Zendaya's pulse quickened. She ran the tests again. Same results. She pulled up Catherine's medication log, her eyes scanning every entry, every dosage, every administration time. The night nurse, Margaret, had been meticulous in her documentation, but there is a small notation. The patient complained of a metallic taste after evening medication. Zendaya's blood ran cold. She grabbed Catherine's most recent urine sample and ran it through the advanced toxicology panel, the one that tested for heavy metals. The results made her stomach plummet. Arsenic. Trace amounts, but present. Not enough to kill quickly, but enough to accelerate death, to mimic and exacerbate the cancer symptoms, to be hidden in plain sight. Someone was poisoning Catherine Hart. Who do you think is behind it? The assistant, the nurse, or someone even closer? Drop your guess in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the truth when it's revealed. Zendaya's hands shook as she printed the results. Her mind raced through the implications. Catherine was already dying. Why would someone accelerate it? Unless they needed her dead before something could be discovered, before a will could be changed, before secrets could be revealed. She needed to tell Kevin immediately. She found him in his gym, a converted space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. He was mid-workout, shirtless, his body a study in controlled power as he hammered at a heavy bag. Sweat gleamed on his skin, highlighting the surprising tattoos that covered his left ribs, dates, coordinates, what looked like a small phoenix rising from flames. He saw her reflection in the mirror and stopped, breathing hard. "Zendaya, what's wrong?" She walked toward him, the lab results clutched in her hand. "We need to talk. Now." He grabbed a towel, his expression shifting instantly to alert concern. "My mother is being poisoned," Zendaya said flatly. Kevin froze. "What?" She handed him the results. "Arsenic, low dose, chronic exposure, designed to accelerate her decline and mask itself within the cancer symptoms. Kevin, someone in this house is slowly killing your mother." The transformation was instantaneous. The vulnerability she'd glimpsed in private moments vanished, replaced by something cold, lethal, terrifying. This was the billionaire who'd clawed his way out of ruin, the man who'd survived death threats and built an empire from nothing. "Who has access to her medications?" His voice was ice. "The night nurse, Margaret, Patricia, the kitchen staff who prepare her meals. You." She paused. "Me." His eyes snapped to hers, sharp as broken glass. "You think I'm a suspect," Zendaya said quietly. "I get it. I'm the outsider. I'm the one who mysteriously appeared and suddenly discovered this. But Kevin, I'm telling you the truth. Someone is poisoning Catherine, and we need to find out who before—" "I don't suspect you," he cut in, his jaw tight. "I trust you with her life, with mine. But you're right. We need to move carefully." He ran a hand through his damp hair, his mind clearly racing. "The estate has security cameras everywhere. We can review footage, track who's been in her room, who's had access to her medication. And we need to stop the poisoning immediately, Zendaya added. I'll personally handle all her medications from now on. No one else touches them. Kevin nodded, then did something that surprised her. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. She felt his heart hammering, felt the barely controlled fury vibrating through him. "Thank you," he said hoarsely, "for seeing what everyone else missed, for caring enough to look deeper." She wrapped her arms around his waist, allowing herself this moment of connection. "I won't let anything happen to her, Kevin. I promise." He pulled back slightly, his hands framing her face. "I need you to be careful. If someone is willing to poison a dying woman, they won't hesitate to silence anyone who discovers their crime." "Then I guess it's a good thing I'm not alone," she said, meeting his gaze steadily. Something shifted in his eyes, warmth breaking through the ice. "No," he agreed softly. "You're not." The investigation began immediately. Kevin's security team, discreet, professional, ex-military, pulled footage from the past month. Zendaya reviewed every medication Catherine had received, cross-referencing times and doses with the presence of staff members. A pattern emerged. Margaret, the night nurse, had been with Catherine the longest, loyal, competent, seemingly devoted, but the camera footage showed something else. On 3 occasions over the past 2 weeks, she'd been visited late at night by someone who never signed the estate's visitor log. The security footage showed a figure in a hooded jacket, their face obscured, slipping through a side entrance that should have been locked. "Enhance that," Kevin ordered, his voice deadly calm as they reviewed the footage in his study. It was 2 a.m., and both of them were exhausted, running on coffee and determination. The tech specialist brought up the image, sharpening it frame by frame. The visitor turned slightly, just for a moment, and the hood slipped. Zendaya's breath caught. It was a man, late 40s, sharp features, expensive watch visible on his wrist. "Do you recognize him?" Zendaya asked. Kevin's entire body went rigid. "Robert Caldwell," he said, his voice absolutely devoid of emotion. "Patricia's husband, my former CFO." The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "Former," Zendaya pressed. "I fired him 6 months ago, caught him embezzling funds, gave him the option to resign quietly or face criminal charges. He chose resignation, signed an NDA, and took his severance." Kevin's hands fisted on the desk. "I thought that was the end of it." "But it wasn't," Zendaya said slowly, pieces clicking into place. "He's married to your mother's assistant. He has intimate knowledge of this house, the security system, and the staff. And he has motive, revenge, or money," Kevin finished grimly. "My mother's will. She's leaving everything to a trust that supports medical research. But if she dies before the paperwork is finalized, if she's deemed incompetent due to illness, then the previous will stands, the one that leaves a significant portion to Patricia, as thanks for years of loyal service." "And Patricia is married to Robert," Zendaya breathed. "Kevin, we need to move now. If they realize we know—" The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the study, broken only by the faint glow of the computer screens. Kevin was on his feet instantly, his hand finding hers in the dark. "Stay behind me," he ordered. "Kevin, please." The emergency backup generator should have kicked in within seconds. It didn't. Then they heard it, a scream, high and terrified, from the second floor, from Catherine's room. Kevin ran. Zendaya followed, her heart in her throat, her medical bag banging against her hip, as they raced through the darkened halls. Other voices joined the chaos, security shouting orders, feet pounding, the general alarm system finally wailing to life. Catherine's door was open. Inside, illuminated by the emergency lights now flickering to life, was a tableau from a nightmare. Margaret, the night nurse, lay crumpled on the floor, unconscious, blood seeping from a head wound. Catherine was gasping in her bed, her oxygen line disconnected, her eyes wide with terror. And standing over her, a syringe in hand, was Patricia Caldwell. "Don't move," Patricia said, her voice shaking but determined. The syringe was poised over Catherine's IV port, filled with a clear liquid that could only be one thing, a lethal dose of something fast-acting. "I mean it, Kevin. One step and I'll push the plunger." Kevin froze, his hands raised. "Patricia, don't do this." "Do what?" Patricia's laugh was brittle, edged with hysteria. "End the suffering of a dying woman? You should be thanking me. She's in pain. She's wasting away. I'm being merciful." "You're being paid," Zendaya said coldly, moving slowly to position herself where she could see Catherine's vitals on the monitor. "By your husband, to speed up her death so you can inherit before the new will is finalized." Patricia's eyes darted to her, wild. "You don't understand. Robert and I, we've given everything to this family, everything. And what do we get? Fired, disgraced, cast aside like we're nothing." "So you decided to murder the woman who trusted you," Kevin said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "The woman who treated you like family." "She was going to leave everything to strangers," Patricia shrieked, "to research foundations and charities while I get nothing after 20 years of service. It's not fair." "Where's Robert?" Kevin demanded. Patricia's smile was poison. "Gone, with the first half of the payment. The second half comes when she's dead, and the inheritance clears. We'll be in Brazil by then. You'll never find us." Kevin took a step forward. Patricia's thumb moved toward the syringe plunger. "Wait!" Zendaya shouted. "Look at the monitor. Catherine's going into cardiac distress. You push that and it'll be obvious murder. Poison shows up in autopsies. You'll never see a penny. They'll freeze all assets pending investigation." Patricia hesitated, her eyes flicking to the monitor that showed Catherine's erratic heartbeat. It was the opening Kevin needed. He moved like lightning, covering the distance and disarming Patricia with brutal efficiency. The syringe skittered across the floor. Patricia screamed, fighting, clawing, but Kevin's security team burst through the door, overwhelming her in seconds. Zendaya was already at Catherine's bedside, reconnecting the oxygen, checking her pulse, her pupils, her respiration. "Catherine, stay with me. Come on, stay with me." Catherine's eyes, clouded with terror and pain, focused on her face. "Zendaya," she whispered, "I'm here. You're okay. You're safe." Catherine's thin hand gripped hers with surprising strength. "My son loves you. Don't let him push you away." "I won't," Zendaya promised, tears streaming down her face. "I won't. Just breathe, Catherine. Just breathe." Kevin was beside her then, his hand covering both of theirs, his face devastated as he looked at his mother. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you." "You did," Catherine managed, a faint smile on her lips. "You brought her back to us." The moment stretched, fragile and precious. Margaret stirred on the floor, groaning. Medics were arriving, called by the security team. Patricia was being restrained, still screaming threats and justifications. But in the center of it all were Kevin, Zendaya, and Catherine. A family forged not by blood, but by love, by survival, by the stubborn refusal to let darkness win. The aftermath came in waves. Patricia and Robert Caldwell were arrested within hours. Robert was caught at O'Hare trying to board a plane to São Paulo with $500,000 in cash. The evidence was overwhelming. Text messages, bank transfers, the arsenic-laced medication vials were found in Patricia's apartment. Margaret, the night nurse, had been complicit but cooperative once she woke up, providing testimony in exchange for a reduced sentence. The media descended like locusts, but Kevin's lawyers and publicist formed an impenetrable wall. To the world, it was simply a domestic incident at the Hart estate, swiftly resolved. Inside the estate, everything had changed. Sometimes love doesn't come back to break you. It returns to heal what was broken. If you believe in second chances, comment "Love Wins" and subscribe for more stories that hit the heart. Catherine's condition stabilized once the poisoning stopped. She wasn't cured. The cancer was still terminal. But Zendaya's aggressive palliative care gave her something precious. Time. Lucid, comfortable time. She used it to tell stories, Stories of Kevin as a boy, brilliant, driven, kind in ways the world never saw. Stories of his father's descent, the family's near destruction, and Kevin's desperate fight to save them all. Stories that filled in the gaps of the 8 years Zendaya had missed. "He never dated," Catherine confided one afternoon, her voice weak but clear. They sat in the sunroom, Catherine bundled in soft blankets, Zendaya beside her. "Not seriously. Oh, there were women who tried, God knows they tried, but Kevin," she smiled, "Kevin held onto you like a talisman, like if he let go he'd lose himself completely." Zendaya's throat tightened. "Catherine." "I know it hurt you," Catherine continued, "the way he left. But you need to understand he was a boy trying to play a man's game against monsters. He made the choices he thought would keep you alive, even if it meant sacrificing his own happiness." "I know," Zendaya whispered. "I understand now." "Good." Catherine squeezed her hand. "Because he's going to need you. When I'm gone, he's going to try to bury himself in work, in guilt. Don't let him. Make him live, Zendaya. Make him remember what it feels like to be happy." It was a request, a blessing, a plea. "I will," Zendaya promised. That evening she found Kevin in his study, staring out at the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of fire and gold. "Hey," she said softly. He turned, and the exhaustion on his face broke her heart. "Hey, yourself." She crossed to him, her arms sliding around his waist, her head resting against his chest. He held her like she was an anchor, the only thing keeping him from drowning. "She's at peace," Zendaya said quietly. "In pain, yes, but ready. We need to talk about what comes next." "How long?" Kevin's voice was rough. "Days, maybe a week. I can keep her comfortable, but I know." He pressed his face into her hair. "Thank you. For everything. For saving her. For staying. For being here when I don't deserve you." Zendaya pulled back, cupping his face in her hands. "Stop. Stop saying you don't deserve me. We found each other again, Kevin. Against impossible odds. That has to mean something." His eyes searched hers, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "It means everything. You're everything." He kissed her then, desperate and tender, 8 years of longing compressed into a single moment. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she saw the boy she'd loved overlaid with the man he'd become. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered. "I don't want to be alone. I'm not going anywhere." They moved to his bedroom, a space she'd never entered before. It was surprisingly simple compared to the rest of the estate. Minimal furniture, dark colors. But on his nightstand, partially hidden, was a photograph. Zendaya picked it up, her breath catching. It was them, 17 and 19, taken at Navy Pier during the summer festival. Her head thrown back in laughter, his arm around her shoulders, both of them incandescent with young love. "You kept it," she whispered. Kevin came up behind her, his arms encircling her waist. "I kept everything, every photo, every text message screenshot, every memory. They were all I had of you." She turned in his arms, tears streaming down her face. "Kevin, I love you," he said, the words raw, unguarded. "I never stopped. 8 years, Zendaya. 8 years of telling myself I did the right thing, that you were safe and that was enough. But it wasn't. God, it wasn't. And now you're here, and I'm terrified of losing you again." "You won't," she promised fiercely. "I love you too. I tried to stop, tried to move on. But you were always there, Kevin. Always." They came together in a collision of need and grief and hope. His hands trembled as he touched her, reverent, worshipful, like she might disappear. She pulled him closer, desperate to prove she was real, that this was real. They moved slowly, carefully, relearning each other's bodies, discovering how 8 years had changed them, and how some things remained eternal. Every kiss was a promise, every touch was reclaiming. When they finally lay tangled together in the darkness, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, Zendaya felt something settle inside her, a missing piece clicking into place. "Promise me something," Kevin murmured into her hair. "Anything. When this is over, when my mother—" His voice broke. "When she's gone, don't leave me. I know I'll be a mess. I know I'll probably try to push you away. But please, stay." Zendaya lifted her head, meeting his eyes in the moonlight streaming through the windows. "I'm not that 17-year-old girl anymore, Kevin. I don't run when things get hard, and I don't let the people I love face their demons alone. So yes, I'll stay. For as long as you'll have me." Relief flooded his features. "Forever, then. I'll have you forever." She kissed him softly. "Forever it is." Catherine Hart died on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Zendaya had discovered the poisoning plot. She went peacefully, surrounded by everyone she loved. Kevin held one hand, Zendaya held the other. Kevin's younger sister, Emma, who'd flown in from London, sat at the foot of the bed, tears streaming down her face. Catherine's last words were soft, barely audible. "Take care of each other. Promise me." "We promise," Kevin said, his voice breaking. Catherine smiled, her eyes drifting closed. "Good. Now I can rest." Her breathing slowed, deepened, then simply stopped. The silence that followed was profound. Kevin broke. Years of controlled composure shattered in an instant. He buried his face against his mother's hand, his shoulders shaking with sobs he'd held back for weeks, months, maybe years. Zendaya held him, let him grieve, let him fall apart in a way she suspected he'd never allowed himself before. Hours later, after the doctor had officially pronounced Catherine's death, after the funeral home had been called, after all the terrible practical matters had been handled, Kevin finally spoke. "Thank you," he said hoarsely. They were in Catherine's room, now just a room, emptied of the woman who'd made it feel alive. For giving her those last weeks, for making them good ones. "She was remarkable," Zendaya said softly. "I'm honored I got to know her." Kevin pulled her close, his grip almost desperate. "I don't know how to do this, how to keep going without her." "One breath at a time," Zendaya said, echoing the words she'd said to countless grieving families. "One moment at a time. And you don't have to do it alone." He nodded against her shoulder. "Stay. Move in here. I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but—" "Yes." He pulled back, surprise flickering through the grief. "Yes?" "Yes," she repeated firmly. "I'll stay. We'll figure out the logistics, my practice, my patience, how to balance it all, but yes, Kevin, I'm staying." Something like hope broke through the devastation on his face. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," she said with a watery smile. "But you're stuck with me anyway." The funeral was private, intimate. Catherine had requested no fanfare, no public spectacle, just family and close friends in a small ceremony at the estate's garden chapel. Zendaya stood beside Kevin throughout, her hand in his, a silent anchor. She watched him deliver a eulogy that was raw, honest, devastating. Watched him accept condolences with grace, despite the fact that he was clearly barely holding himself together. When it was over, when the last guest had left and the caterers had cleaned up, Kevin led her down to the lakeshore. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of rose and gold. "She loved this spot," Kevin said quietly. "Used to bring me here when I was a kid, when things with my father were bad. She'd tell me stories about how one day things would be better, that we just had to survive the storm." "She was right," Zendaya said softly. Kevin turned to face her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Zendaya's breath caught. "I know the timing is insane," Kevin said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know we just buried my mother. I know you just moved in. I know it's too fast by every conventional measure. But Zendaya—" He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "I've loved you for 8 years. I lost you once because I thought I was protecting you. I won't make that mistake again." Tears streamed down Zendaya's face. "Marry me," Kevin said, dropping to one knee. "Not now. Whenever you're ready. A year from now, 5 years from now, I don't care. But let me start building a future where I wake up every morning knowing you're mine, where I don't have to be afraid of losing you, please." Zendaya dropped to her knees in front of him, framing his face with her hands. "Yes, God, yes. To all of it." He slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then kissed her, deep, desperate, full of promise and grief and hope, all tangled together. When they finally broke apart, both crying, both laughing, the sun had fully set. Stars were beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. "Your mother knew, didn't she?" Zendaya asked softly. "About the ring?" Kevin nodded. "I showed it to her the day before she died, asked for her blessing. She said—" His voice cracked. "She said she'd been waiting 8 years for me to get my head out of my ass and claim you properly." Zendaya laughed through her tears. "That sounds like her." They sat there on the lakeshore for hours, holding each other, talking about Catherine, about the future, about all the lost time they were determined to reclaim. 18 months later, the Catherine Hart Memorial Cancer Research Center opened on a brilliant spring morning. The building was state-of-the-art, all glass and light, with gardens designed to provide peace for patients and their families. Dr. Zendaya Mitchell Hart stood at the podium, her hand resting protectively on her slightly rounded belly, and looked out at the crowd gathered for the dedication. "Catherine Hart taught me something profound in the short time I knew her," Zendaya said, her voice clear and strong. "She taught me that hope isn't about denying reality. It's about finding meaning, finding love, finding purpose, even in the darkest moments. This center is built on that principle, that every patient deserves not just treatment, but dignity, compassion, and hope." Applause rippled through the crowd. Kevin stood beside her, his hand covering hers, his wedding ring catching the sunlight. They'd married 6 months ago in a small ceremony at the estate, surrounded by close friends and family. It had been simple, intimate, perfect. After the dedication, they walked through the gardens hand in hand. Zendaya was now the center's chief medical officer, splitting her time between clinical practice and research. Kevin had donated over $50 million to the facility and continued to fund research initiatives in his mother's name. "She would have loved this," Kevin said softly, stopping before a bronze plaque bearing Catherine's name and dates. "She does love it," Zendaya corrected gently. "I have to believe that. Wherever she is, she's proud." Kevin pulled her close, his hand resting on her belly, where their daughter was growing. "We're naming her Catherine," he said. It wasn't a question. They'd decided months ago, but a reaffirmation. "Catherine Grace," Zendaya agreed, "after the strongest woman we ever knew." They stood there in the garden, surrounded by the center that would save countless lives, holding each other as they'd promised Catherine they would. Two people who'd lost each other and found their way back. Two people who'd survived betrayal, grief, and impossible odds. Two people building a future on a foundation of hard-won love. As they walked back toward the center, Zendaya glanced back at Catherine's plaque one last time. "Thank you," she thought, "for trusting me with your son, for believing in us, for giving us time." The sun broke through the clouds, bathing everything in warm golden light, and Zendaya smiled. Because sometimes, love really does find a way home.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.